What's up, Magic players? It's Doyle, your host here on DoylePrimeMtG, where I bring you the latest and greatest in Magic content that I can, while still trying to have a life. This week, I'd like to plunge back into the Forgotten Realms, as I've been playing a lot of D&D lately, so I was inspired to build Xanathar, Guild Kingpin.
Forests, islands, mountains, plains, and swamps. The multiverse is all that is, or ever was, or ever will be. There is a tingling in the spine, a faint sensation, as if a distant memory, of walking from plane to plane. Our lives have been forever changed, as if by magic. Embark with me on this journey to eternity. Experience the true power of mind over matter as we ignite your spark and traverse into the magic multiverse.
Xanathar Guild Kingpin costs 4 black-blue for a 5/6 legendary beholder with, at the beginning of your upkeep, choose target opponent. Until the end of your turn, that player can't cast spells. You may look at the top card of their library at any time, you may play the top card of their library, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast spells this way. So this is basically a fixed send triplets, where we're going to get to play our opponent's spells against them. Though the notable fix is that we will play from the top of their library instead of their hand. This means we won't be making as much of an enemy in the early game, unless of course we want to. We will use so much ramp in this deck. Since we can cast our opponent's spells with any colored mana, we can use some old favorites of mine in our box of rocks. Of course, Soul Ring and Wayfarer's Bauble will always be our best gambits. Arcane Signet, Dimir Signet, and Talisman of Dominance will each produce our colors on a 2 mana value slot. Mind Stone, Everflowing Chalice, and Thought Vessel will each give us a colorless ramp for 2 mana with an added benefit. Worn Power Stone, Hedron Archive, Thran Dynamo, and Gilded Lotus will each generate multiple mana per turn, accelerating us much farther. Felwar Stone will ensure that we have other colored mana, just in case that we need to use activated abilities of the permanents that we, will say, borrow. And, as foretold, will allow us to free cast 1 spell per turn. Finally, the Sad Robot, Solemn Simulacrum, and Myriad Landscape can each generate us some traditional land ramp. Drawing cards is going to be our other massive export, keeping this cartel afloat. Night's Whisper, Sign in Blood, Read the Bones, and Stinging Study will each allow us to draw a couple of cards while losing a proportionate amount of life. Windfall and Whispering Madness will each let us wheel our hand, drawing up to the highest amount wheeled. Mystic Remora and Rhystic Study will each draw us cards as our opponents cast their spells. Notion Thief will help us draw cards by stealing other players' draws at instant speed. Predict will allow us to draw 2 cards for 2 mana, since we will typically know the top card of at least one opponent's library during our turn. Fact or Fiction will give an enigma to an opponent of how to split the cards, but we will ultimately choose which ones we want. Gonti, Lord of Luxury, will give us another outlet for using our opponent's spells. Agent of Treachery and Sire of Stagnation will help us to draw multiple cards on their trigger, and should also be quite easy to trigger given our playstyle and all of our mana rocks. We can also draw some cards with our lands, using Mikokoro, Center of the Sea, and Gyre Reach Sanitarium. And finally, Wandering Archaic and Mind's Dilation will each copy our opponent's spells, generating us a whole lot of value in the process. We will exert control over the play space by manipulation of cards and card positions. First, we will protect our life total with Propaganda and Dissipation Field. Animate Dead and Malakir Rebirth will help to return our commander to play if it needs to be. The Scarab God will also let us get an extra usage out of our commander, as well as other players' Gravelane creatures. Of course, we can also use Academy Ruins and or Volrath's Stronghold to recur things from our grave. Proxies are your friends. Memory Lapse and Hinder will not only counter unfriendly spells, but give us the opportunity to use those spells later by storing them atop that player's library. Submerge and Expel for Arazka will each do the same to a permanent instead of a spell. And Painful Memories will allow us to grab a card right out of our opponent's hand and place it atop their library. Manipulation of our opponent's libraries is no easy task, but can be made easier by Siphon and Sight, Codex Shredder, Ghoulcaller's Bell, Pixis of Pandemonium, and Sphinx's Tutelage. Since we are using our opponent's stuff, Mirage Mirror, Glasspool Mimic, Rite of Reflection, and Clever Impersonator will each let us copy some stuff that they control. And we will close this section out with a Feed the Swarm to remove an enchantment or creature, a Wash Away to counter a commander spell, and Swiftfoot Boots to protect our commander. Closing out the game, we'll mostly be using our opponent's threats against them, though we would be better able to do that with more Xanathars in play. Sakashima the Imposter, Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, and Spark Double will each be able to copy our commander without violating the legend rule. Arvinox the Mind Flail, aka Mind Flayer the Shadow, will also allow us to play cards from the bottom of our opponent's libraries, expanding the available spells that we have. And finally, Strionic Resonator, Lithoform Engine, Paradox Haze, and Sphinx of the Second Sun can also each let us cast from more and more players during our turn. As for lands in this deck, you can use all basics, but the following utility lands may come in handy based on your meta. Of course, Cabal Coffers and Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth would be a great duo if they're in play together, but unnecessary to shove in there. Hive of the Eye Tyrant is an excellent flavor addition, making it into a beholder when its ability is activated. Field of the Dead is awesome for making blockers if you have a lot of other non-basic lands. If your playgroup is into fancy lands and you aren't, you might want to include things like Strip Mine, Ghost Quarter, or even a Thespian Stage. One land that I would highly suggest is Moonring Island, allowing you to peek at a player's top card before you untap. The rest of our lands can be basic, leaving us room for 15 islands and 10 swamps. That about wraps it up for this deck tech. I hope you enjoyed the video. You'll find the link to the full deck list on architect.com in the description, complete with a maybe board. Let me know in the comments below if you would take this deck in a different direction, or if there are any key includes that I missed. Cheers, and happy casting.
If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that like button, and also share it with your friends. If you want to see more videos like these, or hear me ramble about how to navigate this magic multiverse, go ahead and click that subscribe button to stay up to date on the latest from me, DoylePrime, and the happenings throughout Magic the Gathering. Thank y'all for watching, and I'll see you all next video.